Welcome back live to Daytona, kicking off the 2003 Rolex Sports Car Series on the Grand American Road Racing Association. Here's the balance of the schedule beginning a month from now at Homestead Miami Speedway, then Phoenix, Arizona, Barber Motorsports Park. You're going to want to catch that race here on Speed Channel, perhaps the most beautiful facility in the country. And the California Speedway at Fontana. Watkins Glen International, sports cars at the Glen. You can't beat it. Later in June, the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course in Lexington. Then back to Daytona at midsummer. Back to the Glen. On to Quebec to the Circuit Mont-Tremblant, Virginia International Raceway, and then the season finale here at Daytona International Speedway.
October 31st, November the 2nd. That'd be a nice time of year to be down here, actually. Yeah, make my reservations.
On board with Kyle Petty, who has had a bit of an off and on just moments ago. Let's take a look at what happened to Kyle. Through the kink, headed for the West Horseshoe. Whoops!
Sacre bleu, only I don't suppose Kyle would say that.
I would call that an off.
Yeah, I'd call that fairly good off.
Oh, got it right up, but not touching the tire walls. Listen.
Whoop. With a rear brake lock in there. Ooh, all that rattling as the suspension. He's very stiffly, solid bushing suspensions rattle as you go across the ground, make a terrible row inside the car.
But he got it stopped. He's coming in. 45 mile an hour speed limit.
Pretty badly flat spotted that lot.
A new set of Dunlops for the 43. The 46 is also in. And the number 83 Porsche is now up to third place, as the 88 Daytona prototype has now dropped to fourth and is still in the pit lane.
That's enough of that, says Carl. I'm getting out of there. Might do that again.
Watch the kink. You can tell the next man in the car.
Who we not quite sure who that is.
I think that's Leo Hendry. I may be wrong. I'm trying to... It's a lot of helmet colors to memorize. Well, that's Mark Lieb getting in the car.
Mark Lieb,
22-year-old Porsche factory driver who qualified this car first in the GT class.
Very quick driver. In fact, they got themselves into trouble very early on because he qualified the car, but he didn't start it. So they lost him that 45 seconds right there when they put him to the back.
We're not sure exactly how that happened, but nevertheless, Mark Lieb from Niefen in Germany, Carrera Cup champion last year. Very, very quick Porsche driver. Let's go to Calvin Fish.
Well, Carl jumped out of the car with a big smile on his face, enjoyed the stint, but a little bit of a loop out there. I didn't see on screen what happened.
Yeah, the car didn't have a sway bar after we tore everything off the front. I don't think so. It gets a little wicked through that kink, and I went to downshift and I missed it, and then I got in there too hot. So it was a slide for life there for a minute, but it was fun.
How did the car feel? I mean, when you get in a car, Kyle, I'm sure you've been through it in the cup racing, and the thing's pretty torn up. Then they say get back in there and go and give it one. Does it make anything go through your mind about whether the car's solid and you start running at these speeds around the speedway?
Well, no, it doesn't. Not with guys like this. I think you look at Roger Hawley and Orbit Racing and all these guys, you got to be pumped up about them. And, they've worked for 24 hours straight, and if you don't give it y'all when you go out there, there's no need to go out there.
All right, mate. Well done. Well, what he's talking about there, with the front sway bar not connected, David, obviously it softens up the front end, completely changes the balance of the car when you start going through the quick stuff. It's just going to dig in and get the car loose on him.
I can't believe it. I mean, the front sway bar there, they'd be talking about adjusting that by 1/8 of an inch increments on a great big bar that's about as thick as your wrist. You take it right off. I mean, it must be an absolute nightmare to drive at the moment.
Now there's the number 20 Ferrari that spent so much time behind the wall. I guess this is a step up. They're actually in the pit lane. Augusto Farfus, the young 19-year-old Brazilian, is behind the wheel. Looks like they're going to put fresh rubber on it.
Max Papis seems to be very pumped about this young Augustus Farfus, doesn't he? Anybody that spends 6 hours in the gym, sort of like, well, me and Guy obviously spend about that sort of amount of time in the gym most days.
I think they're a little short of crewmen after that long thrash behind the wall. Make sure they get that center lug on tight. That doesn't look quite right, but also have Grand American road racing officials overlooking the whole affair. On board with Mark Lieb, who no doubt was told by his colleague Kyle Petty that without the sway bar on, things are a little different, and he is approaching the kink up through the gearbox. Well, excuse me, that's one of the racers group.
Well, I think that's Butler.
Not Mark Lead. That is our race leader. Things have been going just fine. Thank you very much for this Sonoma, California-based team.
I mean, you got to have a bit of luck going for you. There's no doubt about it. Here's a Multimatic car. We've not had much luck today.
No, they are currently counting backwards. 4th overall, Calvin Fish.
You can hear us back underway. Scott Maxwell behind the wheel. Took quite a long time to change that, and it really comes down to the packaging of some of the components back there. We saw how long it was taking to change the throttle return springs a couple of times throughout the course of this race, and the headers were really tucked down there. And later this year at Le Mans, we're going to see those Audi R8 certainly be a factor once again, probably going up against the Bentley this year, and we're seeing that car been documented how it can change the complete rear end in about 5 minutes, but I've also seen that team spend about 5 minutes changing the spark coil. So some of these things just take time. It's tucked down there, it's really hot, and it cost them several laps, but they still have a healthy lead over the 59 Brumos Porsche.
Back on their way. Here's a look at our top 12. Kevin Buckler out front in a Porsche, then Anthony Lazzaro in the Ferrari GT cars 1, 2, and 3.
Latest, greatest factory race car. It is based on a 996 production chassis. So what you see in here on the chassis is based on the street car, but all the parts you see are all the Porsche race parts. We've got the dual master cylinder assembly, so we can adjust the brakes during the race from front to rear. We've got the air jack, special power steering assembly, lightweight battery, the dry brake system for the fuel, as well as the adjustable shocks. This is where the car lifts with the air jack. You see a lot of the lightweight carbon fiber parts that Porsche puts on here that makes the car, brings the weight down to about 1,100 kilos, a little over 2,420 pounds or so. Moving our way back, we've got massive brakes on the car. Those are the Brembos. Those are the 15-inch Brembo brakes with, that's 380 millimeters. This thing will haul the car down from speed every time. We're doing about 180 miles an hour on the straightaway, so we need our brakes. There's the power plant. We're about 425 or 30 horsepower out of a normally aspirated 3.6-liter motor. This is the water-cooled motor. The actual configuration of the engine is similar to the turbo, but it's normally aspirated. Really, that's about it. I'll tell you, this is a great car for 24 hours. This is almost exactly like the car we won in last year, and we'll do our best to try to repeat. I wouldn't bet against one of these Porsches in a 24-hour race, let me tell you. We're proud to be driving it.
Well, prophetic he may be. Kevin Buckler working on his 3rd straight 24-hour victory at either Daytona or Le Mans. Right now they have an 11-lap lead over the second-place car, and that would be this machine, the Ferrari 360 GT. Let's go to Guy Hobbs.
And that Ferrari 360 GT just made its stop. Set 36 of the Dunlops went on. It was a very calm and cool pit stop. They've been having trouble with their fuel rig all this time, but amazingly this time the fuel just went straight, the hose just went straight in, and Anthony Lazzaro just pulled out very slowly and very carefully, cleaned out a bit of debris, and it was a nice smooth stop for this team. You've got to be happy to be in second. They said they would rather be up in front. Anthony Lazzaro stayed in the car. Calvin?
Well, right now, Guy, the number 8 Piccio machine has been pulled back behind the wall bars. I understand you're going to park the car for a while and bring it out for the finish.
Yeah, I mean, these guys did a lot of work last night, the whole Red Bull team, and we had a lot of problems in the beginning of the race, but the car was really fast all night, and we're 3rd in class. We can't do any better, can't do any worse, so they decided to save it. We did a lot of testing last night, learned a lot of things for next race.
I've certainly been impressed when you've been out there running with the Brumos Porsche and also the Multimatic Ford about the parity of the speeds with the different engine power plants out there for this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing the rules, how equal they are. I mean, that amazed me. I ran with all of them, and I mean, the BMW engine's a great engine, but it ran pretty equal with the Ford and with the Porsche.
You race anything, anywhere, all of the time. How many races and what series are we going to see you in this year on speed?
I'll be over 40 this year, and tentatively I'll be in the Speed Vision World Challenge, Trans Am Series on Speed Vision, and Winston Cup road races, a 24-hour Nürburgring, some Southwest Tour, some Grand Am, and some American Le Mans. So that should keep me out of trouble.
Okay. Well, if anyone's watching there, you're going to see a lot more of Boris out there this year, and I'm sure he'll be on the podium a few more times. Nice run, mate.
Thanks a lot.
I always call Boris said, the Egyptian driver, Boris Said, and that picture there, with the sculpture of his face and that halo, I've seen it before somewhere, that face with the beard, it just looks awfully familiar.
Perhaps his father, Bob.
He should be Father Bob. Now, he talked about the 24 hours at the Nürburgring. Now, you talk about a race. Here, we've got the lights all the way around the track now. At the Nürburgring, 14.5 miles, 176 corners, hills galore, hedges, bushes, trees.
Wasn't that on the old course?
And pitch dark. I mean, really dark out there in the middle of the Eiffel Mountains.
On the Nordschleife.
I'm sure they ran it on the Nordschleife.
Now that is a racing circuit.
That is a racing circuit. You have been around there.
Went around that in an AMG Mercedes with German touring car champion Bernd Schneider once, and that was a religious experience, let me tell you.
Especially when he answered the phone, right?
Yes, exactly. Picked up the phone. Hello? I didn't understand the German, but I think his conversation was something like, well, I'm doing a hot lap with the Nordschleife right now, so I can't talk to you. I'll have to put the phone down. Looking at the third place car in the overall and third place in GT.
And only one lap behind that 35 car.
Behind the Ferrari, exactly.
And lapping, at the moment, looks like a bit quicker. 3 seconds a lap quicker. So they could make that up in the time left, which is about an hour and 40 minutes.
And look at the spaces they've made up. Started 37 and made up most of those 34 spots in the first few hours of the race. They just came rocketing forward. So I expect Johannes van Overbeek, David Murray, and the crew had more car than they were able to show in qualifying.
Well, I think they played it very cool in qualifying, and they certainly did just come to life when the race started. And this is a team that, with a bit of luck, would certainly be vying for the lead, because they had to change the radiator when some debris that was lying on the track went through their radiator. Nothing they can do about that.
A couple of the SRP2 class cars destined to be phased out here in Grand American Road Racing. Eventually, the GARA will be 2 classes, 1 prototype and 1 GT. It'll take a few seasons.
Into the turn 1. We've seen a few incidents in this turn 1 during this race. Hurley Haywood had a spin early there. Scott Goodyear, rather, had a spin early there. Hurley Haywood ran long there early on in the race and whipped that front fender off his car. Then we saw the terrific crash with Andrew Davis in the night, early on in the evening, when he ran up the front of
the 21.
Of the 21 car.
That's Brian DeVries from Grand Rapids, Michigan, behind the controls. You're on board the number 5, Joe Pryzkowski. Nissan V6 power in both cars. Lifted out there in the King. This is the West hairpin.
One of the retirements is the Dayytona prototype with the Nissan engine, which really we were looking to do very well. It's got the, I'm sorry, it's Toyota engine, not Nissan. These are Nissan. We were kind of looking for that to do pretty well too. The V8 engine car.
Now, Kevin Buckler once again in the race-leading Racers Group Porsche 911.
There you get a good look at the new shape of the bus stop.
One of the strengths of Porsche over the years is they are truly a racing company that also builds street cars. We talked earlier about Alvin Springer, who is retiring as president of Porsche Motorsports North America. Alvin says the racing program and development for these 911 GT3 RSs came up with an engine tweak that gave them 10 extra horsepower. Within a year or so, it was on the street car, the Porsche 911.
Just in that circle there, there's a little crack in the windshield, which seems to be about the only thing that's gone wrong with this car. it's just right here. It's the only thing that's gone wrong with it in all 22 hours so far.
22 hours is not 24, and a lot can still happen. Make that roughly an hour and 40 minutes or so remaining in the 41st Rolex 24 at Dayytona. Dayytona is brought to you by Rolex, the watch of champions the world over. Back at Dayytona International Speedway, coming up on an hour and 36 minutes remaining in the race. Here's Greg Kramer, who paid a visit to some pretty hallowed ground.
Throughout the entirety of the Rolex 24 at Dayytona, the teams and drivers are focused truly on one spot. They want to be first to drive through the gates to this location, Victory Lane at Dayytona International Speedway. It is here they will receive the trophy that will carry their name. It is here they will receive the adulation of both the crowd and their peers. And it is here where they will spray the champagne in celebration. But what they really want, well, Speedway Director of Communication Glenn Johnston is holding. It is this incredible timepiece from Rolex. This goes to the winner of the Rolex 24 at Daytona. If you carry this on your wrist, you have achieved something very rare and special in your career. It is a magnificent timepiece, absolutely incredible. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you very much. This is it. This is what it's all about. Oh, you got to win here for one of those. In my dreams.
What are they even thinking about that? Greg Kramer hold a thing like that.
Well, you notice how close Johnson was standing to it. And I imagine there were probably armed guards at the gate. Of course, getting there can be a tad expensive. Here's a look at some of the expenditures for the Orbit Racing team. Now, these are things like engine rebuild, transmission, drive shaft, all the bits and pieces that you will undoubtedly go through. And then keep in mind, gas goes for $4.50 a gallon. The tires are about $1,700 a set. They might tell you that winning the Rolex 24 is priceless. Keep in mind, it does come at a cost.
It is priceless.
And in case you're wondering,
that little pit stop, you know, will have cost them about in bits and pieces, because they didn't put the sway bar back. But I mean, they're going to have to eventually. That front fender, the headlight assembly, the brake disc, bits and pieces, probably about a $7,000 or $8,000 job.
Well, they're not doing it for money. First prize with bonuses is in the range of $50,000. Of course, if our race-leading racers group Porsche wins, it is vying for the new Axiom Grand Touring Challenge bonus, which will add $10,000 to that total. And that Axiom program, yes, sponsored by the same computer services company that sponsors Charles Morgan's number 46 GTS Corvette, will be a part of the Grand American Road Racing program all year long. Let's meet Charles now with Calvin.
Charles, you've been here many times before at Daytona. You've had 3 class wins, but we're coming down about 90 minutes left in this event. Do you get nervous at this time, even though you've got a pretty healthy lead?
You're always nervous at this race. Anything can happen at any time. We've had a pretty picture-perfect race after about the first hour, so everything's working well, and knock on wood. It's going well right now, but it's always nervous at this last hour or so.
You've been racing for many years, Charles, and you and Rob have raced several times together, a lot of father-son teams in this event. What does it mean to you at this stage of your racing career to still have that opportunity?
Well, it's a lot of fun. I enjoy being with Rob, and we work well together, and it's something that we've been able to do. It's a father-son team, and I think it's brought us closer, so I've enjoyed it very much.
Got some new Axiom sponsorship rewards program here this year for the leading Grand Touring class, which could be your car, but that number 66 car, as I understand, is in the pits right now, but it looks like routine, so they're still going strong.
Well, Axiom has had racing in our marketing programs for a long time. We don't spend mega dollars on marketing, but the 5,000 people that work at Axiom and all of our customers, like to see us out in motorsports, and certainly I do. So this will be a new program for Axiom, and we're excited about it.
All right, mate, well, another great run here at Daytona. Fingers crossed the rest of the way.
Thanks, Calvin.
Could be the 3rd straight victory for the father-son combo of Charles and Rob Morgan, driving with NASCAR star Lance Norrick and former winner of the Rolex, Jim Pace. They built this car, they piloted it to a win in the 6 hours at Watkins Glen last year. Then they showed up for the Daytona finale and won that in the GTS class. And here they are now gunning for a class victory at the Rolex. Here comes the 66 after what Calvin accurately described as a routine stop. Timo Bernard of Germany back behind the wheel. They are in good shape right now. 11-lap lead over the 35 3C Competizione Ferrari 360 GT, and an additional 2 laps over the 83 Porsche 911 of Johannes van Overbeek, David Murray and company. We'll take a break and be back in a moment. Stand by for more live coverage of the Rolex 24. Welcome back to Daytona. Earlier we met the father-son combination of Charles and Rob Morgan, and as Calvin Fish mentioned, not the only father-son combination in this race. Tom Hessert from Cherry Hill, New Jersey, is here with his son, Tom III. Senior Hessert was the 1988 IMSA Camel Lights champion, a three-time winner of the Rolex 24 in class, 1988, 89, and 97, with 3 different manufacturers. As for the newest generation of racing Hesserts, youngest Tom started when he was 6 years old in karts. Progressed to the micro midgets, and then to three-quarter midgets. Finally, a full-scale USAC midget program last year with Mopar motivation. This year, at age 16, he became the youngest driver ever to start the Rolex 24, breaking the record set by then 17-year-old Clint Field. But as far as the Hesserts are concerned, this is about racing together at a world-class level.
I'm handing the baton over to my son. This is a long race. It's a season's worth of racing. And for him, it's one of the things I've always dreamed about or thought about to do is share with my son. And as a race car driver, he is very, very competent. And as a dad, I'm scared to death. So it's pretty good.
Ever since I was probably since I could talk and started racing, we've always talked about doing this. So it's just, we're both really excited about being here and racing together and in such a good car. So it's a good deal.
Now the two race together in the number 68 Porsche from the Racers Group. Unfortunately, their race came to an end when Jim McCallion was bumped into that wild spin and backed it into the trackside Armco.
And I saw Grandpa and Grandma last night in the bar back at the hotel, and they had been out here all day yesterday watching, and they were very proud of the fact that young Tom was the second fastest driver in the car, just a tad slower than his dad still though.
As it should be. Kevin Buckler looking on, brought 3 great cars here, including last year's Daytona winner, last year's Le Mans winner, and this car, which is a brand new Porsche 911 GT3 RS. The other 2 are back on the trailer in fairly sad shape after 2 vicious crashes. Nobody hurt, fortunately. And this car is on its way right now with an 11-lap lead and about, well, less than an hour and a half to go. And now it is nail-biting time.
We saw Kevin there crossing his arms and blowing out a huge sigh. I mean, at this stage of the game, you know, worrying.
Well, yeah, we talked about that irony. Early in the race, if you're going to drop out, you want to drop out before you start spending about $3 grand per pit stop and putting lots of wear and tear on the car. You get to this point in the race, especially if you're leading, and the last thing you want to do is drop out.
You got that right.
You told me the story once. So was it Jochen Rindt and Graham Hill were at Le Mans? They thought the car wasn't going to last, so they made plans to leave early. And of course, the car ran like a clock.
Jochen Rindt and Marston Gregory.
Marston Gregory, that's who it was.
Yeah, they thought it was going to blow up, so they just drove the heck out of it, hoping to go home about 6 o'clock in the evening, and yeah, won it. Oil leak, no oil pressure, the whole thing just ran. It was just a basket case right up to drop of the flag, and it won.
That's why these races are so much fun. There's the number 44, which was behind the wall for a while. They lost the windshield at one point last night. I believe this is the second windshield to go into this car. They had a big spin and lost both rear tires, and the windshield popped out. I think this is the second replacement they've done. 3rd windscreen since the green flag waved yesterday afternoon at 1.
I had a big lead here in 1968 in a Ford GT40, the Golf GT40, and about 8 o'clock in the morning. I was signaled to get out of the car, and I couldn't understand why it wasn't a driver change, and the fuel tank of all things had sprung a leak. I mean, it was just leaking at the bottom of the car as quick as they were putting it in the top. So you never know what's going to go wrong.
Good one these races. Back comes the 44. Currently shown 20th overall and well back in the GT class. The GT cars, well, I was about to say they're dominating, but that's not really true. The top 3 cars are GTs, then 2 Daytona prototypes, another GT car, a GTS, 2 SRP2 class leaders, 2 more GTS cars, then 4 more GT, 2 GTS, 2 more SRP2s.
Well, between the, the top 3 cars are GT cars, and really there's only 12 laps between the 3 of them, and then you've got the 2 Daytona prototypes, and they're only a lap behind that. So it's all very close at the top of the field.
And those 2 leading SRP2 class cars continue to rack up donations for the Seattle Children's Hospital. Over $1.3 million and climbing worth of pledges and donations over the 6 years the Team Seattle has been in existence since it was founded by Don Kitch. back now, one of those Ferrari 360 GTs.
I was up in Seattle last weekend, speaking to the local BMW club. I left Milwaukee where it was 0, and I got to Seattle and it was 55. Not too bad for January. The only trouble was it rained from the moment I landed to the moment I left the next day, but very pretty, nice and green.
That's what Don Kitch called it.
Great city. In a wonderful location.
I believe that driver lineup is completely from the Seattle area. See the 20 car. This is the car shared by Augusto Parfas, as well as Mad Max Pappas, who's going to take us on a car tour of this machine a little bit later on. This is one of the Michelotto Ferrari 360 GTs. The sister car was lost to a heavy fire. Dr. Steve Earle was able to clamber out without a problem. And this one has gone pounding around since then. They had a long stretch behind the pit wall. They're currently running well back in the field. And we'll learn more about that car in just a moment. Stay with us for more from Daytona.
Hi guys, I'm Max Taffis, and I'm going to show you my new toys for the 24 Hour of Daytona. The JMB Ferrari 360. Actually, I really would like to have this one to go out there on the street every day. It's a very special car, and it's going to be my first ever time on a GT car. That means with a roof on my top. Usually I can see the blue sky. If I look up this time, I will have to look out of the window. This car has something very special that has a paddle shift. That means you don't have the gear lever in the middle of the car there, but you have just up and down, pulling these two levers here, and it actually select the gear. It's something very similar to what is used on a Ferrari on the track, and I'm sure it's going to do very good for me in a 24 hour, because you can't miss gear, and it actually makes my job a little bit easier. And we have a characteristic here, the Ferrari 360, the restrictors, that they're actually limiting the power of the car, because if you would run full blast, with a full air in the car, this car would definitely be too quick. For this year, 2003 24 hour, my new toy shared with my teammate is the Ferrari 360 run by JMB. Very successful team in Europe, and hopefully we're going to make it even more successful here in the United States, bringing another victory, because I want one more of this.
Boy, these guys are proud of their Rolexes, aren't they?
And well, they should be. A very nice timepiece. I've had mine since 1973.
Well, we should stop talking about 24 hours. There are 80 minutes, roughly, remaining in this race. Let's go to Calvin Fish.
We're down here with Andy Wallace, and Andy, coming into this event, it was really wide open. You thought GTS was the way to go, and potentially you could have won this one. Just a few niggly problems, the biggest one being the gearbox in the middle of the night.
Yeah, we seem to have the speed, although with the new rules, where the rear wing is situated and how big it is, a bit too small really, it's not getting much air. So it was difficult to keep up with some of the other cars out there, but we were doing quite well. Unfortunately, just as you say, we have really big ups, and all of a sudden something goes wrong, there's a big down. Then we think, oh no, we'll be okay, we'll get back to the top again, and something else hits us.
Sideways around the banking has to be something you haven't experienced before. Normally that's the easy part of the racetrack.
Well, exactly. Well, I've only ever driven prototypes here, and on the banking, that's the place where you rest. You just swerve in and out of all the Porsches and stuff, but with this car, it's actually a real handful. And sometimes, it's not lock to lock, but it's certainly a few degrees each way, backwards and forwards, just to keep the car going straight, and it gets your attention, I can tell you that. But I mean, if you just look around at our crew, they haven't given up. They've been in the United States. They're French. They've been here for I think 5 weeks now, working their butts off, and unfortunately, we're not going to get a result for them.
But as much success as you have had here, Andy, and the amount of watches you've won, I would imagine that your other occupation is probably quality used watches, right? You got a little store back in England.
Yeah, but you can never win too many races, can you? And I really want to win this race again. It's such a difficult race to win, and I will win it again. I just have to get lucky.
All right, mate. Well, you certainly had the knack and the speed over the years. Another good job this year, Andy.
Thanks very much.
Poor baby. Got a draw full on, but he wants more.
He's only won 3 times, so let's not lose our heads here.
Yeah, poor chap. Yes, the bane of my life, Andy Wallace from Birmingham, England. What a pain in the butt he's been. Goes to Le Mans the very first time that Jag wins it. And I'm talking to him on the plane on the way home. He says, well, that's what I went for, mate. I went to win, didn't I? I said, yeah, I'll be come 20 times to win it. So look, I still haven't won it.
Let's see, 90, 97, and 98 here, 92 and 93 at Sebring, 88 at Le Mans.
Yes, I remember.
Rookie year.
Yes, I remember.
I just wanted to remind you. And the original Petite Le Mans, 10-hour or 1,000-mile race at my home track at Road Atlanta back in 1999. The Grand Slam for Andy Wallace.
Very successful Formula 3 driver in England, because he wanted to do Formula 1 really. Then he got the chance to drive that Jag at Le Mans, won Le Mans, kind of changed his focus because there wasn't anything for him to drive, particularly in Formula 1 at the time. You know, you've got to drive the right thing at the right time, otherwise you're done for. And obviously he just took off and had a great career in sports cars with lots of wins, but was a very, very fast Formula 3 driver. No doubt Calvin remembers him.
British Formula 3 champions, I recall.
Yeah.
In the 80s. João Barbosa of Portugal has the controls of the car he shares with Andy Wallace and their teammates. Currently running second in GT and 10th, the GTS that is, 10th overall. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back. About an hour and 12 minutes to go in the 41st running of the Rolex 24. Check out Speed News tonight. Dave Despain and Rick Benjamin will have all the news of the weekend in motorsports for you, including extensive highlights of today's Rolex 24 with analysis from my good friend David Hobbs.
What?
On track, Kevin Buckler. His car in the hands of Timo Bernard leads the race now by 10 laps over the GT Ferrari. Nice handy margin. They're cutting laps consistently in the 2-minute range, so they have backed off some. At one point they were running 153s, which is faster than this car was qualified for this race. And they grabbed it by the throat at about the 12-hour mark and have not let go. Looking like an overwhelming favorite to win the race. 20th overall victory for Porsche. Kevin Buckler knows a lot about Porsches. Restores them at his shops in Sonoma, California. There's a prominent East Coast Porsche restorer and a car in this race. Sadly, they were one of the first to drop out. This is Kevin Jeanette on the right and his son, Little Gunnar, working in the shop. Gunnar Jeanette has been around race cars, as you can see, for virtually his entire life. Here he is as a toddler, sitting on the then state-of-the-art Porsche that won this race back in 1983 with A.J. Foyt and Bob Wallach. For his part, Gunnar Jeanette has always loved cars.
I've grown up around the 935 JLP3 that, you know, John Paul's won everything in, and different 956s and 962s and 917s, and I've been fortunate enough to drive a lot of those growing up and sort of progressing into that. So it's just, you know, for a kid that likes cars, just totally awesome.
Well, Gunnar Jeanette started racing here at the Rolex as a teenager. Sadly, he was the second car out of the race with a Porsche GT1. Here's the number 15. This is the Team Seattle Essex Racing second place car in SRP2 to their sister car. Looks like a fairly routine stop. We'll have a change. The GTS leader is in, and once again, this car is getting some extra attention. Looks like they may have done a brake pad change. What's going on, Calvin?
Well, they're actually looking at something on the rear end. Jim Pace is behind the wheel. He's obviously feeling something back there in the differential or something, maybe the spool. I'm not sure what sort of locker they have in this car. This mechanic's getting awful close to that rotor spinning around. That radio gets hooked up there. He's going to go for a ride anyway. And they're trying to talk on the radio with Jim as to what the problem may be, but I think that mechanic needs to be careful.
No question about that.
Boy, I'd say get his overalls, his uniform called. Good.
This car has a 12-lap lead over the second-place car in GTS, and that's the Wallace Polycan number 24 Mosler MT900R. So they do have some time to suss out whatever the problem may be, but it looks like they're taking the bodywork off, and that could mean a change potentially in the GTS standings in the closing hour of this race. So we'll have to monitor that situation.
They get a pretty good cushion over this car, and of course we're getting to the point of the race now. We've got a few minutes to go yet, where the Buckler car is sort of almost assured the win with the 11 laps it's got over the Collins car.
Let's stay with this story now. There's Charles Morgan. Calvin Fish is there.
Well, Charles is getting, I'll stick the mic in here with Jim. What's the problem?
Something in the drivetrain is, I'm not sure what's on there. It sounds like a drive shaft or a...
Get a word here with Jim. He's trying to get his helmet off here, which takes a little bit of time with the harness device. Jim, you're behind the wheel. You had the car spinning around there on the jack stand, trying to have the mechanics take a look as to what's going on. What did you feel out there on the racetrack, mate? What's the problem?
I just picked up a little bit of a vibration in the drive line. We just want to check it out before we finish it out here.
Okay, well, maybe just being cautious here, trying to make sure there's no major problems. The last thing you want is to have something break and strand the car out on course where you can't get to it and fix it. And they're just trying to be a little bit cautious here, make sure they can maintain that lead and bring it home for the class victory.
So now they'll have one of the crewmen perched on the wall there, counting the laps, keeping an eye on the 24 car, which has actually just entered the pit lane. So the Mosler is making its way to the 24 pits. It's just gone by the Morgan pits, and they're pitted only 2 pits away from the 46 car. So they'll have lots of time to keep an eye on one another. Calvin?
Yeah, and it's going to be Andy Wallace jumping in here, and I think it was Jerome Polican possibly getting out, or Yal Barbosa. But Andy's going to be jumping in. He's certainly got the experience to bring this thing home. And there was a lot to play for. Just over an hour left. I'm not sure what sort of lead the 46 car has. And if they need to get that thing back out there probably, you know, about an hour and 5, hour and 10 minutes left. They're probably going to run about 30 to 35 laps in that amount of time. And they only have a 12-lap lead. So anything can happen here. And that GTS title is still up for grabs today.
Very much so, depending on what happens with the Morgan car. As I mentioned, that car began life back in the early 90s as an Oldsmobile in what is now the GT Super category. Raced for several years, was put away in the garage, brought out, dusted off, refitted as a Corvette, and has had a very successful racing history over the last year and a half. But right now, their lead in the GTS class here at the Rolex could be in jeopardy, and who better to get into that pursuing Mosler than a guy with the credentials of Andy Wallace.
Got a few laps to pull back, though.
Goodyear tires on the GTS machinery as well as the Daytona prototypes. Dunlops on the GT cars and the SRP2 machine.
They've changed. That was a pretty routine stop for these guys. Just changed all 4 tires, and Andy got in. He's got about a 12-lap deficit to them all in the car, and he could make up 12 laps in the time left, just about. I mean, they got about 15 or 16 laps left to go in this race.
I wonder if he's going out with that in mind. Okay, here's a window of opportunity for me. Let's see if I can snatch victory from the jaws of defeat here in the final hour. Of course, this team, Morgan Dollar, will be watching very carefully what Wallace is doing, what his lap times are, how quickly they have to get back out. Of course, they want to solve whatever problem they have, or at least limit it.
You can do quite a bit of work on the car in 12 laps.
Ring and pinion, we're being told.
Oh, that's going to take a good 12 laps to do that, I think.
Come down here, guys, and if they have to change this, I mean, when I ran with Roush here, those guys were the masters of these quick changes, and I think the best they did it was in about 17 to 20 minutes. So, you know, that's about 10 laps, and that's really going to erode that 12-lap lead that they currently have. And I believe as Rob Morgan has jumped in the car, taking over the driving duties from Jim Pace, but, you know, they need to get working on this thing. And we spoke to Charles about half an hour ago, and he says, you always get nervous as it comes down to the wire down here at Daytona. Anything can happen, and we're going to see it probably more of these stories develop over the next 60 minutes or so.
12 laps, too. That's 12 laps to the Roush team. That's a pretty special team. I know that Rob and Charles Morgan, they're a couple of great drivers. They've got a nice team together there, but that's asking a lot for them to do that job in 20 minutes.
And I keep thinking, they certainly know that Andy Wallace is the guy in the car who's coming. So this should be a lot of fun to watch over the last hour.
Interesting to hear what Andy Wallace said about driving this Mosler on the banking there with that small rear wing mandated by the rules and regulations of the Grand American Championship, but that's not the sort of thing you want to be hanging on in the banking on these cars. That may be what happened to some of those earlier Dunlop tires on some of the GT cars. They got the wing, if they had them feathered out a bit for top speed, and were losing downforce on the banking. I mean, now wrecked that right rear tire quicker than anything.
You see the fresh rear end gearing being readied on the pit wall. But keep in mind, you can only have 4 guys over the wall working on the car. That doesn't mean they have to be the same 4 all the time. If you've got a guy with a specialty and you want to substitute for one of the guys who's over there, one guy comes over, one guy goes out. Of course, one man is out there with the mandatory fuel bottle, excuse me, a fire extinguisher. And these guys are going to have to work with controlled fury. Make sure you get it right, but go as fast as you possibly can, because a three-time winner of this race is out there on the banking, and he is flying. Let's take a break and return. Last hour of the Rolex 24 coming up. Victory Lane at Daytona International Speedway at the Rolex 24. Another of those scenes about to play out in just under an hour's time as we welcome you back, kicking off the final hour of the 41st running of America's great 24-hour sports car classic. I'm Bob Varsha with David Hobbs. Glad to have you with us. Down in pit lane, Guy Hobbs and Calvin Fish. We're all watching a great drama in the GTS class. There is your overall race-leading Porsche 911 GT3 RS from the Racers Group. Kevin Buckler and his team looking to win their third straight 24-hour race. And they have dominated this event, but the real drama is going on in the GT Super category. The class-leading Corvette is sitting in the pit lane. The Morgan Dollar crew trying to replace that rear end in the car. Meanwhile, out on track, Andy Wallace has cut the deficit from 12 laps to 8, and it's about to turn 7 as we go back down to the pit lane and Calvin Fish.
Well, they're about 8 minutes into this change right now, Bob, and I just had a quick word with Charles. I said, any idea on the length of time it changed? That he said, I'm guessing around 20 minutes, but you know, this is not routine sort of stuff. I mean, ideally you'd like to have all of your ducks in a row and you'd practice this stuff, but when you get to Daytona, there's so much to get through, you just don't have that sort of opportunity. So the half shafts have been pulled out. This is really a different type of style that I've seen before anyway, the way it's actually situated here in the rear end. Kind of half the casing comes out rather than changing the whole piece. So part of it is like fabricated, and then there's a Hoolan piece going to go back in there. But again, it all comes down. It's tight quarters. It's red hot down there. The car's been running for like 23 hours now. A lot of heat, a lot of hard work for these guys, and it's going to be real close. It's going to come down to the wire again.
Well, Calvin, meanwhile on track, Andy Wallace went rocketing down into turn 1 where the timing line is. There was a GT class Porsche. That yellow one to the left of your screen was just in front of him. Was he wild under the red mist on the attack, trying to get around that Orbit Porsche? Nope. Andy Wallace, cool as a cucumber, just changed down, took his place behind the Porsche until the track opened up again, and then went by. No rash activity from Andy Wallace.
No, you won't find rash activity from our Andy. He's very cool, calm and collected under extreme stress. And of course in the GTS leading pit there, the 46 car, because the thing is, when you're going to take a thing apart like that, as Calvin so aptly said, you really want to practice all that sort of stuff beforehand. There's bound to be something that's going to be inaccessible, difficult to get, just to make life difficult for the 35 car.
Running in second place, Anthony Lazzaro.
He's 11 laps behind the leader, second in GT.
His teammate Johnny Mullen from Great Britain is standing by with Guy Hobbs.
Yes, Johnny just made his way out from the hospitality area where he was short of 1 Weetabix. Thanks, Johnny.
Have you eaten it then?
I'm saving it for later.
All right, then I'll take it back off you, hopefully, in Victory Lane later on.
I knew you would, you cheapo. Hey, listen, things are looking really good right now, except for Anthony's just radioed in that he's got a bit of a vibration. Probably going to bring the car in and try and get another set of tyres on there.
Well, basically, we're just going to have to obviously go to the hour mark, which we've nearly accomplished now, or already have accomplished, and then we can go an hour on fuel. So once we get him in here, it'll be good, and hopefully we can go to the end, not have any more gearbox problems.
At the moment, you're 10 laps down to Buckler with 1 hour to go. You mentioned the hour mark. Your clock in the pit area here says 11 o'clock. Is that because we're so far west in pit lane that we're an hour behind?
No, that's just race time, 11 hours.
Oh, I wasn't sure about that, Johnny. Obviously, you're not going to get back in the car, but you're going to be pretty happy with this, the way this whole 24 hours has gone for you guys.
It's been absolutely fantastic. I've enjoyed myself immensely. I mean, the team are just phenomenal. I mean, they've got so much experience, and the car's great to drive, apart from when we have a few glitches with the gear shift, and I've had a great time, and driving with Ralph and Anthony, I always know I'm going to be in with a good shout of doing well, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we can last to the end and get a great result.
Do you have plans to do any more races with these guys?
It's better ask Giuseppe, but I'm doing Sebring back in a Porsche again, which obviously most people know me from with Peterson, and after that probably going to do most of the LMS with Peterson, but maybe Le Mans with Giuseppe, who knows.
All right, and make sure you eat 3 Weetabix a day so you're a superstar.
Thanks.
Oh, young racers take heart. Johnny Mullen did not start his racing career till he was 19 years old. 6 years later, he took a crushing championship victory in the British Pirelli Porsche Super Cup with 17 wins and 15 poles in 17 races. So, of course, he came to the attention of the Porsche factory. He has 2 Le Mans podiums in the GT class. So it's never too late to start your racing career. Meanwhile, down the pit lane, the 88 Multimatic Ford Daytona prototype. We understand there is a long brake pedal. More problems for the Multimatic crew, Calvin?
Well, possibly. I just spoke to Larry Holt. This should be their last stop here with about an hour to run, and that's about the fuel mileage they've been seeing. Scott Maxwell has jumped out. He's talking to David Embringham. These guys have been co-drivers in many race series over the years, so I'm not sure they actually did a pad change. When I came on the air this morning, Chris Neville thought that they may be making a pad change, but they look really thin there as I look down now on the right front corner here. The pad is not down to the metal, certainly, but right down to that area where they're going to wear out really fast and really not have a lot of stopping power. And what happens is, you know, when you get the pistons that far out of the caliper and you go over any of the bumps, it kind of kicks the pistons back, and when you go down on the brake pedal, that's why you get that long pedal. But I'm sure Scott has told David Embringham, who's now behind the wheel, about that, and David is very experienced, real calm behind the wheel. I'm sure he'll just try and bring it home for the class victory today.
Well, you're going to be very careful, Calvin, if those pads get too thin, the pistons just could pop out the caliper.
Well, those are huge pistons on those calipers, too.
Oh, it looks like they ought to do a brake.
Looks like they're going to go in there and take the pads out.
See there,
They have to be very careful how they do this. Make sure they don't get air of the lines. Meanwhile, the 59, no doubt knows the 88 is back in the pit lane. 20 laps separate J.C. France and the Brumos Fab Car Porsche from the Maxwell Embringham Brabham Multimatic car. No doubt, JC has just been told the 88 is doing a pad change. Make hay while the sun shines. There were some concerns that France was, shall we say, a little under-rehearsed for a drive of this caliber, considering the guys he was driving with, Goodyear, Sharp, Haywood, that clan. But he has done very, very well.
Certainly kept his end of the bargain up admirably, so that worked out pretty well for the whole team, I'd say.
He was the last guy to lead that 66 Porsche from the Racers group last evening. Now the brake pad change is continuing. Alvin Fish is right there.
Well, this is where they have to be careful. We've seen it before at these endurance races. Right now, the first thing the driver must not do is put his foot on the brake pedal, because it's going to pop those pistons out like David was talking about. But also they have these big kind of clamps go in here, and what it does, it forces the pistons back in, but the person on the other, what they're doing here is doing it one side at a time, which is a lot more conservative. It's going to take longer, but if you have both of the calipers off the rotors and the other guy on the other side doesn't do it at the same time, you'll push the pistons out on the other side as the fluid goes across the system. So they're going to do right side first and then go to the left. So they have a healthy lead. They can afford to take their time on this and not make any mistakes. You don't want to be changing calipers at this change. They just want to push those pistons in. Look at the force he's having to use to get that in, forcing the fluid back into the system and giving it enough room, essentially. Look at the difference in thickness there. You see the yellow pad, essentially, that's been placed in there. One new pad on one side. They've got to get the other pistons back in to give it enough room to then get the caliper back on the rotor itself.
Look how thin the pad is on the road there, Calvin. It really was pretty much down to the backing plate.
Yeah, and they're just working hard here, but you know, this, again, it can go wrong here. He can't afford even to push one of the pistons back. You've got to get it on all three, I believe, David, otherwise you'll pop one of those things out.
Oh, yeah, when they pop out there, they're very devil to get back because of the seal. It's so tight fitting on them. But that caliper on the pad on the floor is right down to the backing plate.
Yeah, those needed to be changed. Now here is Anthony Lazzaro. They were talking about a slight tire problem on that second place GT Ferrari 360. Let's go to Guy Hobbs.
Hey, Anthony brings it pretty smooth, and they are going to put a fresh new set of tires on. He complained about a vibration, and they're hoping that's all it is. It's just the tires. Although it wasn't all that long ago since they just put these on. Stickers going on, obviously fuel, hoping to make it pretty close to the end. They're going to run about 45 minutes, probably have to come in one more time, and they're pushing it as hard as they can, of course, in case anything should happen to the 66 of Kevin Buckle. Having problems with the the right rear, getting the right rear off. The left rear is on. Clean that windshield up. And Johnny Molan, Giuseppe Risi, and the rest of the crew look on.
Let me interrupt you, Guy. We're watching the 83 Porsche, the Overbeek Murray car. They are in third place, but only one lap down to that Ferrari.
Ooh, and Anthony Lazzaro just stalled it, too. And again, problems with the... No, okay, he's got the right rear now. This is going to probably be a screamer as he goes by us. Oh, he's having a hard time getting into here. Oh, trouble for Lazzaro.
Oh, now the 83 Porsche can come around.
Now he's having trouble refiring it. Okay, now it's refired. Can he find a gear?
He is in that last pit.
Okay, he is out. Calvin, I believe we got more.
Here comes the 83 car, too, up to the start-finish line, but he pulls down the pit lane. I think the 83 car might pit him as they exit turn one.
All right, back to the brake pad change. Looks like they finally got that caliper back on, Calvin.
Yeah, they got the one done on the right side, Bob. They actually had to crack open the system and actually lose a little bit of fluid. It was probably pressurized to the point. The other thing is when that piston gets a long way out, it can actually go, cock to one side there, so it won't enable it to go back into the caliper itself. Now they're working on the left side, and we'll see if they have a similar drama over on this side of the car. So by the fact that they've actually cracked the caliper open, they may need to just top up the master cylinder, but I do not believe they'll have to bleed the system.
Of course, the bleeding is a devilish operation as well. You have to make sure that both lines are being bled at the same time so you don't get an imbalance.
Yeah,
well, Lazzaro is back on track, and that 83 Porsche...
There's the 83 Porsche coming to the picture at the top as he goes around the turn onto the banking. Don't forget, Lazzaro's got brand new tyres on. He's got a bit of a vibration. I'm sure that he's hoping that the vibration will have gone away by changing the tyres, but as Guy said, they haven't had those tyres on long.
Now, this will not be for position, but the 83 car can get back on the same lap as the second place Ferrari.
Well, you can see here, this is the inside pad, I believe, on the right front corner, and he was absolutely down at the backing plate. No pad material whatsoever on the inside of the caliper here on the right front corner. So when I looked in the wheel when they were doing the driver change, there was some meat left on the right pad, but on the inside, it gets the pressure first, it'll wear out first, and that was the problem for Scott Maxwell when he was out there on that last stint.
Boy, no wonder he had a long pedal, Calvin. Now, there's just no pad left at all.
The 43 Porsche up high. Looks like the bodywork flapping at the left rear. I thought maybe that tire might be fading on it, but looks like it's all right. It's just bodywork flapping.
Just a few seconds there separating these cars. The 83 car could get that lap back and be on the same lap with Kellner's.
That's Johannes van Overbeek in the 83 car. Guy Hobbs has more on him.
Yeah, he's saying in the car they are going to have a splash and go, and they're going to do it sometime between now and 12:30. They're actually hoping for a yellow, but they also know there's not much hope of a yellow with so few cars on track. So they're definitely going to have to do a splash and go, and they want their second place back. They had it most of the night. They want it back. So they are fighting for that, but they do have to make one more stop, but it's going to be just a splash and go.
Well, they're going to want the splash and go, but they're going to want it to be under yellow, and they don't want that yellow to come before they get back on the same lap as the Ferrari. Right there in the hands of Georgia's Anthony Lazzaro, a veteran of the Rolex 24. And that GTS fight is getting interesting. Next time by, Andy Wallace will be within a lap of the Morgan car, which has left the pit. Channel's coverage of the Rolex 24 at Daytona is brought to you by Hooters. Delightfully tacky, yet unrefined. Welcome back. There is but one car in the pit lane, and it is the GTS class leader for the moment. Rob Morgan went out in this car and then radioed in. He is back in. Calvin, what's up? Well, Channel's coverage of the Rolex 24 at Daytona is brought to you by Hooters. Delightfully tacky, yet unrefined. Welcome Welcome back. There is but one car in the pit lane, and it is the GTS class leader for the moment. Rob Morgan went out of this car and then radioed in. He is back in. Calvin, what's up?
Well, the situation is they got that rear end change done in about 19 minutes, Bob, which kept him in the lead. But as soon as Rob got back on course, he said, I don't have fifth gear. So that may have really been futile in changing that rear end. Maybe the problem is in the gearbox itself. However, when they did do the change, they did have to disconnect the prop shaft, and maybe that has created some problems with the linkage now when he's trying to shift. So there may, in fact, be two problems.
Meanwhile, Andy Wallace is on the 3,000-foot backstretch. Next time across the timing stride, he will be on the same lap as the 46 car for the GTS class lead.
Well, the way the 46 car left the pit there sounded to me like it was already in a high gear.
Doesn't have first.
So maybe it doesn't have any low gears either.
Heartbreak for the Morgan Dollar team.
Well, this will click them up another lap though, of course, leaving the pits here. We'll put them on lap 6:19. And then when Andy Wallace goes by right now, he's going to go to 6:18, so he's still going to be a lap down, but going considerably quicker.
Let's find out what Charlie Morgan thinks about all this with Calvin.
Charles, the team did a great change there on the rear end, but still more problems. Is it a different problem or the same?
No, it's a different problem. Rob started to put it in first gear, take off out of the pits, and the gear shift came off in his hand. So after all this time, we had two problems at once. But, you know, that's long-distance racing, things that are going to break you never expect to break.
What if you try to do, just get it into a gear and have him trundle around?
Had to jam it into gear, so he's in third gear, I think. So we're going to run as much as we can the last hour, just stuck in third. So we'll probably end up going back down, but we'll go as far, as fast as we can here.
As he said before, it's a nervous time, and about 45 minutes left or so. Not sure what the official time is on the clock, Bob, but he's going to be stuck in gear. He's not going to have the speed. There you see a spare part coming out, but that's going to take time. I'd imagine they'll just keep him in that gear, let him run around. They'd ideally like to be in a higher gear, but he'd probably struggle to even get out of the pits in like top gear, so they have to choose one of the medium ones.
There you see the gear shift lever lying in the pit. Looks like it just kind of sheared off.
That reminds me of a race at Silverstone when I was racing Denny Hulme in a Formula Junior car, and the gear shift came off in the aim.
They make shifting gears difficult. There's the clock in the upper left. Under 44 minutes to go. I'm sure they fueled up that car. They prepare to pound around in third gear, knowing that Andy Wallace is coming.
He's about to overtake him right now on NASCAR, between NASCARs 3 and 4, just as they go over the tunnel, the entrance. There he goes. Whistles by, so he gets one lap back. He's got one more lap to get back yet.
Now, if Rob Morgan can make some time running as he is in third gear and does not over-rev the car or blow it up or damage it in some other way, and that's going to take some skillful driving, he can fight this for a while yet.
I think the speed differential is just going to be too much.
Too much, yeah.
Because they've got 40 minutes left. 43 minutes, 9 seconds to be exact.
Has about 2 minutes behind him.
Well, Morgan's last lap was a 2:23, and Andy Wallace's was a 1:58. 25 seconds of lap, going to take one full back. 2 minute lap left.
Well, a half hour from now, it would be really interesting. If we were in the same situation. Well, as you've said many times, David, about the likes of four-time world champion Alain Prost. Sometimes it's always good to be good, but sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. Andy Wallace just seems to have a great, big, healthy helping of good fortune, like Prost always did.
Now, as we're watching him, of course, we got to forget that Kellner and Overbeck are fighting out for second overall and second in the GT class, and they're turning laps almost identical, and they're only about a couple of hundred yards apart. Andy Wallace going down into the newly shaped bus stop, which everybody seems to like and approve of. Swing into the left, then a right, and it used to be quite a long straight here, but now it's almost immediately another right, and then a left back onto the track, and the cars go back onto the track where it's still straight, as opposed to before, where they used to launch right about here, right at the foot of the banking. And Joe Hish, who's very big in vintage racing got hurt badly here last year coming out of that chicane. I think that's one of the reasons they changed it.
Wallace sweeps through the tri-oval, closing ever closer to Rob Morgan. Calvin Fish.
Well, the situation down here on the Andy Wallace machine is they have some major overheating problems as well, so they're really screaming at Andy, you got to cool it, just run a pace around 2 minutes or so. That should be enough. They understand that the 46 machine car is in trouble, but they can't afford to push it too hard because they're going to really burn the engine down in that Mosler. And as we speak, the 46 car is back on pit lane.
Oh my goodness me, what drama going on here, which is like 40 minutes ago.
Oh,
of course, these days you know about all these dramas because of all the communications. In the old days, you know, nobody never knew what the heck was happening because you just had a chalkboard out there at the back of the pit lane there to tell you where you were. You had no radio connect. You had no idea what anybody else was doing or what problems they had, and even if you did, you had no way of telling the driver.
The driver would have to pull in, tell the team what's going on. They'd have to figure out what they have to do.
If you're out there, like they say to Andy, look, he's got a problem, they can tell him exactly what's happening to Rob Morgan. But in the old days, of course, Andy Wallace would be flying absolutely flying.
Just over 2,400 miles into the 41st running of the Rolex 24. As David just mentioned, we have great drama everywhere. The potential for history from that GT Porsche leading the overall. Great battle for second between the Ferrari and yet another Porsche. They're just a lap apart at this point at this battle in GTS. Calvin?
Well, I'm down here looking in the cockpit. I thought they were using a pair of vice grips to try and change a part, but I'm going to ask Charles here. They maybe just try to clamp those on. Charles, are you trying to just get a pair of vice grips so we can actually shift gear with that?
That's what we're trying to do. Yeah, I don't know if they're going to be successful or not.
He may be able to shift gears once, guys, but he ain't going to be able to go up and down the box with just a pair of vice grips clamped on there.
Well, that's one way of doing it. Why not? Only got to do it for half an hour. if he could change gear a couple of times a lap.
The use of
get into the chicane, get into turn one, jam it into second, and then just go straight from second back to top. That would do. He'd go quicker than he's going now, stuck in one gear. Because there's a lot of high-speed stuff here. You don't want to be stuck in third because you're running 40 miles an hour, 50 miles an hour slower than you can potentially go. But if you stick it in fit, as Calvin said, you never get out of the pit.
The Morgan team's going to be here at Daytona for a while. They have a NASCAR Craftsman truck that will open the season here during Speed Weeks. And of course, the NASCAR Craftsman trucks will be live on Speed Channel this year. So you're going to be hearing a lot from Charles and Rob Morgan. Stand by. Plenty of drama still to come in the last half hour of the Rolex. National Speedway, about 35 minutes to go in the 41st Rolex 24, and we've got great drama all over the place. There is the race-leading Porsche 911 GT3 RS from the Racers Group. Kevin Buckler and his team looking for their third straight 24-hour race victory and the first win ever for a car from the lowest class in Grand American sports car racing. A look down through the field. Anthony Lazzaro just a lap ahead of Johannes van Overbeek for second overall, as well as second in the GT, a classic Ferrari versus Porsche battle. David Epringham and the Ford Multimatic Daytona prototype team, they're leading their class, fourth in the overall, but they have had a string of mechanical issues and most recently just completed a traumatic brake pad change. A little bit further back, the SRP2 cars pretty much going the way of the Team Seattle 5 and 15 cars. Pruskowski and Guerrero are in the cars right now. Then Andy Wallace is now past Rob Morgan and his stricken Chevy Corvette. Wallace taking over the lead in the GTS class in the Mosler MT900R.
Quick update on the 46 car, Bob. They didn't really get a fix made. They tried to work on that vice grip, getting on the gear linkage, but nothing seemed to work. Rob Morgan is back out there, stuck in a gear. He's just going to trundle it around and just pray that something happens to that Mosler in this final hour.
It's all hands on deck in the final hour here at Daytona. In addition to Guy Hobbs and Calvin Fish in the pits, Chris Neville is on board as well. He's in the 88 Daytona prototype pits, and Guy Hobbs is monitoring that great battle for second in GT between the Ferrari and the Porsche. I'm Bob Barsha, along with David Hobbs. Glad to have you with us for the dramatic final 30 minutes of what has been an incident-filled Rolex 24 at Daytona. As usual, so many of these drivers and their teams came in with great dreams, including David Donahue, who hoped to repeat his late father Mark's victory back in 1969, and it looks like he had all the tools to do it until the engine failed during the nighttime hours. Didier Taze was the overall winner a year ago here at the Rolex. His Daytona prototype dropped out early. On board the number 43 Orbit Racing Porsche, currently shown in 6th place. And these guys have fought back from a number of problems over the last 23 and a half hours. Mark Lieb, the young German, currently at the controls.
And they were just so good in practically qualifying with an absolute class of the GT field.
Now here's the 3rd place car in GTS. This is the number 31 machine. In the hands of an international driving lineup, Rob Barf, Andy Britnell, Richard Stanton, all of England, as well as Rick Sutherland, Daytona veteran from Los Gatos, California. Right now it's Andy Britnell from England who was at the controls. Another beautiful Mosler Corvette-based supercar. Problems for Mark Lieb in the 43, Calvin?
Yeah, they got some sort of linkage problem as well, not similar to the GTS car of the Morgan car, but they're just a little notchy. He can't get 6th gear, and I heard him coming down the front straightaway here just a short while ago, not on the rev limiter, just backpedaling. He can't get into the high gear, so they're just going to try and cruise and get it to the finish.
4th in class, looking for a top 5 finish or a top 10 if they're going to have to slow down and hang on. We mentioned the Britnell car, 3rd in GTS, but just 3 laps behind the stricken car of Rob Morgan, so they have a shot at perhaps a 2nd place finish, certainly a podium if they can hold together. There's Mark Lieb. There's the 31. Car looks good. All of the sandblasting across the nose that is traditional here at Daytona International Speedway.
Yeah, the Morgan father and son car has really had a nose job done on it, hasn't it?
There's Rob Morgan. The blue paint practically blasted off the front of that car. On board, the number 15, Team Seattle, Nissan Lola. 2nd in the SRP2 category, 4 laps behind its sister car. Across the top of your screen, the entire running order. The field cut in half over the last 23 hours. The SRP2 car you were just riding aboard, passing the Morgan Corvette, or trying to, down into turn 1. I wonder if he knows that Rob Morgan is struggling with a car stuck in 3rd gear, so he can't slow too much to try to stay out of the way of that SRP2 car coming by. He's got to deal with the cards that he's been dealt. Update on Team Seattle, up to $122,200 in pledges at $188 per lap. They come here with that car, they take their pledges, they run as many laps as they can to raise money for Children's Hospital in Seattle. They're up over $1.3 million in the last 6 years. Brian Till.
Yeah, Bob, they're saying that I just spoke with Kevin Buckler, and they're talking about bringing in the 66 car here. They get a good, comfortable lead. They're going to bring it in, top it off with fuel with about 20 minutes to go. Michael Strom is going to get in that car, and he will be the one that we hope, and so do they, keep your fingers crossed, take it to the checkered flag, and win this thing outright with a GT car.
What an incredible performance for this operation, and continuing such a long string of success. Victory here a year ago, victory at Le Mans in class, and now overall. What an incredible exclamation point for the Porsche domination of this race, going for their 20th overall victory, 55th class victory here at Daytona. And as you see, they qualified well, 3rd in class, running 1st in class. The other 2 cars crashed out from the Racers Group team. But this one has been bulletproof. 30 minutes and counting here at Daytona. We understand that Rob Morgan has managed to work his car into 4th gear, picking up the pace slightly. Right now, he is 2 laps down. Last lap, a 2:07. Andy Wallace is lapping just under 2 minutes with that car that, as you heard with us earlier, is overheating slightly, and they don't want him to push it too hard. Calvin Fish is monitoring both the 46 and the 24. In fact, we may have to throw the 31 Mosler his way as well, because that car is 2 laps from catching Rob Morgan. The last lap for Britnell in that car, well, that was a 2:10, so I'm guessing he might have been in traffic. What have we here? This is the race leading SRP2 class car. Class leading, I should say. Like he might have been held for something at the pit exit. Kind of a stop-and-go penalty, or perhaps sort of a pit violation in which they held the car in the pits after a stop.
Cars starting to look pretty ratty now, bits of bodywork flapping around and obviously very dirty. Paint all sandblasted off. The only car that appears to be totally unscathed by anything is the 66 car. Apart from that minute crack in the right bottom right-hand corner of the windshield.
First and second place cars in GTS. Andy Wallace trying to nurse his crippled Mosler home with the class victory. Right there is Rob Morgan. Desperately trying to shift that Corvette. I'm not sure if he has both third and fourth gears or if he's just in fourth gear now, but as you can see, he's picked up the pace considerably on the backstretch.
He is now 2 laps behind Andy Wallace, who obviously at this stage can afford to take it very easily because he's going to be quicker than the Morgan car. The Morgan car, on the other hand, only 3 laps in front of the 31 car that we were looking at just a few minutes ago. It doesn't seem to be lapping any quicker than Morgan, in spite of the Morgan transmission problem.
Report from Calvin is the temperature staying fairly even on the 24, so everything's good for the moment. There's the 83 car, third in the GT class, and for the first time ever, third in the overall GT cars. First, second, and third. Guy Hobbs, as you just heard, is there.
Well, they told us it was just going to be a splash and go. It's turned out to be a lot more than a splash, and they also changed all 4 tires. And right in front of this 83 pit was where the SRP2 car pitted. You guys were questioning if they'd been held for any reason. No, they hadn't.
Okay.
No, it was, they just kind of had a hard time getting out. There's no penalty.
Well, this is the time where you want to make sure your pit stops are completely buttoned up, and I suspect that's what they did with this car. Let's put a little more fuel in than we need. Let's put fresh tires on it. We've got a 7-lap lead over the next car in line, and that's the Multimatic Ford Daytona prototype, which is lapping at just under 2 minutes per. So they were pretty safe to take a nice long stop, make sure they've got it buttoned up. Who knows? Maybe the Ferrari will stop again, and they'll have a shot. Channel coverage of the Rolex 24 at Daytona is brought to you by New Campbell's Chunky Roasted Favorites, hearty soups that fill you up right. Welcome back. Live coverage of the final 30 minutes. Make that a lot less than that. Probably about 21 minutes to go here, judging from my own watch, which is not a Rolex.
My Rolex says
your Rolex.
22 and a half minutes to go.
So that's the way it's going to be from here on out, huh? Some Rolexes in the immediate future for these guys, if that's not courting fate. Kevin Buckler, Timo Bernhard, crew absolutely dominated this race, looking for Porsche's 20th overall victory. The first overall victory for a 911-based Porsche was back in 1977, a 911 Carrera RSR in the hands of who else? Peter Gregg and Hurley Haywood, co-driving with Dave Helmick that year.
The initial overall win was in 1968, when, needless to say, somebody else who was not driving a Porsche did not win it when the fuel tank sprang a leak.
Ah, yes, that would be David Hobbs in the Ford GT40. Speaking of Fords, there's one. That's the 88 Multimatic car. Who was with you in that GT40 that year?
Paul Hawkins, the Australian. A very voluble young man. Good fun. Unfortunately, he was killed just a couple of years later in his own car up at Alton Park in England.
Continues on its
Canadian Focus, that is, you know. Got to go and live in Canada.
So we've had a lot of emails from folks saying, where can I buy a Focus like that one?
We have.
Contact the folks from Multimatic, which is in fact a Canadian company, if I'm not mistaken. Chris Neville?
Yeah, I'm down here in the 88 pit with Larry Holt. Larry, you guys have had a tough road past 23 and a half hours, but it looks like you just got the class win. That's got to feel pretty good.
Yeah, it does. I mean, from the standpoint of comparing what we designed and built against our competitors, yeah, that's really great. But I come here as a racer, not as a manufacturer. I came here as a racer, and I wanted to win the race. So I'm a little disappointed with that because basically we spent a bit too much time in the sick bay here with a couple of stupid things, throttle spring and a broken cracked header. You know, the rest of the car was dynamite, solid, engine was really solid, everything went extremely well. So I thought, you know, man, we could have had that. So we got a little bit cheated out of the overall win. But As a manufacturer, I like it.
Well, they definitely did a good job down here with the amount of time that they've had to develop this car. Back to you guys upstairs.
No question about that. That's the operative fact with regard to all of our Daytona prototypes. Very little time to get these cars sorted. A couple of them that came out hadn't turned a wheel before this race. That's how young this class is.
Well, I must say that if I was in the Daytona prototype car, I'd be keeping my eyes looking behind me for the car that Kevin Doran built, the Chevrolet Doran. That only did a few laps. They didn't run a lap at all until Thursday. The car didn't run a lap anywhere until Thursday. They were still building when we got here on Thursday morning. And they only did a very few laps in the race. But it's one of the very few cars that's done a 151 in this race, in spite of doing so few laps.
Race leader in the SRP2 class, you're on board. And speaking of Daytona prototypes, Jack Baldwin tells me that Max Crawford's Daytona prototype under development up at his Crawford Shops in the Carolinas is going to raise the bar a little bit. It's very swoopy, heavily tested in the wind tunnel, and when we see that car in Grand American Road Racing, could see these cars pick up a notch in speed.
Oh, Max Crawford helped me not win this race in 1982 in John Fitzpatrick's Porsche 935, another derivative of the 911 Porsche. What a wonderful car that was to drive and race, the 935. We had 4 wins altogether that year, but not here at Daytona.
There's the number 24, Andy Wallace. Temperatures at last word were holding somewhat steady. The car is currently comfortably into the GTS class lead. Here's a look at our race summary. 5 leaders, 19 lead changes in all. 10 cautions. The 11th one was actually a local from the flag stand, not a full course caution. For a total of just 35 laps.
Very good. 35 laps in a...
Very good.
Been out of 700. I was pretty good, I'd say.
Over about, well, exactly half the field that started the race is still running, which is another good sign. And the average speed, believe it or not, is actually up a tick over what it was as we left you last evening. We have 2 Ferraris running close together on the racetrack. The 35 for Anthony Lazzaro. That is the Risi Competizione car. And there's the JMB Ferrari USA car, the number 20 machine. Let's go to Guy Hobbs.
Yeah, we're down here with Giuseppe Risi. And Giuseppe, you run one of the greatest programs in sports car racing, great results. And now coming away, it looks like a firm second place finish here. You've got to be pretty chuffed.
I'm sorry, Guy, I didn't catch that last word.
You must be pretty happy.
Yes, I am indeed. This has been the culmination of a lot of preparation and a sponsor that stood behind us, and I'm very happy indeed.
What are the plans for the rest of the 2003 season?
We will do the whole AMS series, including Le Mans.
And will you keep the same driver lineup?
Yes, very much so.
So I can tell Johnny Molam he's still got a job?
Well, you know, you're not supposed to tell drivers too many things. But yes, I would say so, yes.
All right. Giuseppe, we've got to thank you as our camera crew, and we've got to thank you for catering to our needs too over the weekend. There's been some lovely food laid out.
Guy, it is always a pleasure, and thank you very much. And I want to thank all the people that came here to watch us, and thank everybody else here that have supported us through this last 24 hours. Thank you.
All right, congratulations as Kevin Buckler brings the number 66 overall leader onto pit lane for what will be his final pit stop.
Thanks, Guy, and I appreciate you not telling us about the good food down in the Risi Competizione pit. I suppose I should have known. Giuseppe Risi, great guy. I asked him whether that Ferrari was a good commercial advertising venture for him. He says, no, people buy Ferraris for other reasons. Let's get to Brian Till.
The 66 car in for its last stop. The next time they want to see it here, it'll be big celebration. Michael Strom will be getting in. With less than 20 minutes to go, it would seem that the race basically is already won with the lead that they have, but they'll put nice new tires on it. They'll top it off with fuel. Michael Strom will get in this Porsche, and he'll take it back around to the checkered flag. Calvin?
Well, the 24 car is in, Brian, just for a splash. And unlike Le Mans, they can actually keep the engine running. So this is really a bonus. The last thing you want to do after this many hours on a machine is to turn it off so Andy keeps the car running. They're going for a little bit more than a splash. I'm not sure he needs this much gas exactly, but they're being pretty careful there. They want to make sure this car will get to the checkered flag. Andy Wallace getting the thumbs up from the crew, and he's back underway. Let's go back down to Brian.
Well, Calvin, down here, the officials want to make sure that this car gets back underway. Obviously, with a commanding lead, they want to make sure that nothing impedes it. No fewer than 5 officials down here on this pit stop to make sure that the photographers are not in the way. car down off the jacks. Michael Strom has it fired up, and I expect to see the 66 car gone and not back until they see the checkered flag. Bob?
They chose to shut that one down. That's an important rules distinction between Daytona and Le Mans. At Le Mans, you have to shut that car off and restart it on its own.
Many a car has failed to restart at Le Mans over the years too. That is for dead sure. Michael Strom going out that pit lane. It's so tight. The exit there, no doubt feeling tremendous pressure at the moment.
As David Hobbs has often pointed out, you heard that Porsche fire up? That's the way they are. 24 hours of thrashing the car, rup, rup, rup. It just pops to life every time. We'll be back. Is there a more distinctive automotive shape in all the world than the classic Porsche 911? Relatively unchanged from the first one that rolled off the assembly line. And as I mentioned earlier, Porsche is one of those rare automotive companies in the world that is racers first and then street cars based on the knowledge gained on the racetrack. And of course, there is no Porsche model that has been more celebrated and more successful on the racetrack than the 911 series. But what a weekend it's been for Porsche, and what a couple of weeks we've got coming your way. Be sure to check out Speed Week on Speed Channel, live from right here at Daytona International Speedway. The trucks, the ARCA Series, Busch Grand National Winston Cup, we're covering all of it. When the cars are on track, we're on the air, beginning Friday, February 7th at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, taking you up to the Great American Race, the Daytona 500, be coming your way on Fox. We've got to leave some sort of a little message for our friends, DW, Larry Mack, Jeff Hammond, the whole gang from Fox. 12 minutes and counting at the 41st Rolex 24 at Daytona. Bob Barsha, David Hobbs, and we have a full pit lane. Chris Neville, Calvin Fish, David Hobbs, and Brian Till. What a weekend it's been for this car and this team, the Racers Group team from Sonoma, California. Kevin Buckler and his crew. 2 cars crashed out in spectacular fashion. 1 will go on, it appears, to win this race. A 10-lap lead with 12 minutes to go. Oh, now what's happened to the SRP Archangel Motorsports team? This is the SRP2 car that was involved in the crash that took out the 67 machine, and Andrew Davis ran right up the front of the car when Larry Alberto spun on a restart during the darkness.
It's absolutely miraculous to see this car back in here, and for it to stop out there on the far banking with just about 10 minutes to go is horrendous.
Here's the crash I'm talking about. From hour 6, Alberto spun on the restart. Andrew Davis came up and had this very scary moment.
Well, Andrew Davis was following a Ferrari and it was right behind the Ferrari. The Ferrari obviously saw Alberto's car, just jogged, and there it was right in front of him.
Credit Mike Johnson and the entire Archangel crew for getting that car back together, getting it on track. But Chris Bingham is now stalled just about as far away from the pit lane as he could possibly get around this 3.5 mile track.
He needs a tow in the worst possible way, because we just don't know what's wrong with it. I mean, it's a miracle. It's looking as good as it is after that, what we just saw.
Well, we checked in several times during the late hours on the work they were doing. They weren't quite sure they were able to get the car back on a track. As it is, they did it. The car is listed currently as 18th in the overall and 3rd in the SRP2 class. Scanning the list, they're not under fire. I suspect they may still get a podium with so little time remaining in the race. Let's see what else we can learn from Chris Neville.
Well, I walked up to these guys and they were just sitting around. They had their headsets off. They didn't even realize that there was a problem with the car. So they're all kind of scrambling right now, but we have to remember that these guys have had a communication problem, so they can't even talk to their car. So that's why their headsets were off. So there's nothing they can really do right now, and I don't think they can improve their position anyways.
No, they can't.
They can't improve and they can't be beaten either.
No, so they're pretty much all right to leave it where it is, because not much is going to change. They never get it in 9.5 minutes. Meanwhile, for the 66, more Porsche history. Hard to believe there's anything Porsche hadn't accomplished here at Daytona. And once again, what a way to send Alvin Springer into retirement as president of Porsche Motorsports North America. And I'm sure our friend Bob Carlson, public relations chief for Porsche Cars North America, the home office in Atlanta, been in the hospital recently. Probably got a big smile on his face, too. Get well, Bob. There's Andy Wallace leading the GTS class after overcoming Rob Morgan in that Corvette. They had a long, long pit stop, changed the rear end, and then had further gearbox problems. So now it is the Mosler out front, Calvin.
Yes, it's really status quo. Checked in with both crews. The 46 car, they've got him in 4th gear, as you mentioned, Bob. Trying to get a little bit more speed around the banking. He's really struggling getting off the low-speed hairpins, of course. But he's doing all he can do, just backpedaling so he doesn't over-rev the engine. He needs another gear, obviously, to get down there at top speed. And with Andy Wallace, they're saying that the temperatures have remained stable. He's looking in good shape. And old Wallace, David, seems to have that knack again for being in the right car at the right time, even if it's not for the overall.
No, but, I mean, his gamble that he took by taking on a GTS car, certainly with a bit of luck, would have paid off for him. Change that transmission, obviously cost him a lot of time in the middle of the night.
There's a look at the car we saw so much of in our opening 8.5 hours of coverage. The number 59 Brumos Fab Car Porsche, second in Daytona prototype by, do the math, David, 17 laps to the 88 Multimatic Ford. This team has been through a lot. Consider, once again, 5,000 miles of pre-race testing. Hurley Haywood told us they did an entire race distance without a thing going wrong on the car. And then they came out to the race, things started going wrong.
Well, of course, the weird thing was the first car, David Donohue's car, dropped out with an engine failure, which is just something that never happens with a Porsche. The only other time I can remember that happening was at Le Mans in 1983 when a certain fuel injector pump broke.
And this was Hurley Haywood.
They abused this car pretty badly, and it stayed up pretty good, hasn't it? I mean, it got so much dirt in it on this little trip that Hurley came out looking like he'd been farming all afternoon.
This was in the waning hours of the afternoon on one of the blind parts of the racetrack and one of the fastest parts of the racetrack, that dogleg or kink on the infield. With the sun getting low, he had to get off track to avoid spinning cars ahead of him, filled the inside of the car with dust. They had a lot of problem with driver changes for so menial a reason as the fact that they couldn't get the seatbelt clamped to work properly. It was so choked with dust.
Then they had a radiator change this morning because something had gone through the radiator, which they picked up off the track, which obviously is something else that if it happened in testing, you'd say, well, we're not going to count that because, you know, that doesn't count. But unfortunately in the race, it does count.
It's just the luck of the draw, bad luck. Racing luck, gurney luck they used to call it. American racing legend, the winner is both a car builder and a driver here at Daytona, and had so many brutal disappointments over his career. And so it has been for the Brumos team. 30 years for the first win for Haywood and Gregg in a car painted very much like this one. They came in with high hopes, and they will come away with a distinguished performance for a brand new car. The trendsetter for the Daytona prototype class. But it will not be victory today. You can be sure there will be victory in the future.
I'm sure they're going to be able to get some more performance out of these Ferraris too. They've got good top end at the moment, but they don't have a lot of torque off the corners, and I think that's where the Porsche is doing the most damage to the Ferrari at the moment, is coming off the tighter corners. So they need to get a little bit more torque into these Ferrari engines.
Well, we have a full staff in the pits, and we have a full staff in the booth as well, as we welcome back Lee and Jack. Gentlemen, you've had a few hours off to study the proceedings. Lee, what are your thoughts on the way this Rolex is winding down?
Just thoroughly enjoyable, Bob. It's been my first Rolex 24 at Daytona, and so many things to talk about, so many positives to take away. Sure, at the beginning it wasn't the biggest field we've ever seen at Daytona, but plenty to talk about with the new Daytona prototypes, the GT class. Wow, how strong were they? The parity, Jack, lots to talk about.
Real impressed with the way, you know, Grand American stepped up to the plate, made some rule changes, and it was a big chance on their part, but it's showing that it's made parity between the classes, increased the competition. I tell you what, I'm really looking forward to next season with the Daytona prototypes. I think it's going to be a very, very exciting 24-hour. This 24-hour has been fantastic for me. I've never spent a 24-hour in the booth, and it's been a real pleasure working with the pros up here.
Well, the drama is not finished, or the bad racing luck. There is that Marcos Mantis that has been through so many problems through this race, and now, with coming up on 4 minutes to go, they have shed the left rear wheel, maybe the left front, down there in the International Hairpin.
They are a cool 235. flaps behind, and they're still going round. And we saw Coy just a few, an hour or two ago, and coming back next year, can't wait to come back.
Well, you can imagine after the race they've had.
I would have thought the way he's feeling the motor, he couldn't wait to get away from the place.
And after all this, just to take the flag, that's the prize.
Well, that's exactly the point. The 21 Archangel SRP2 car has been brought back to the pit lane, and I wouldn't be surprised if those guys try to do something to get that car across the line.
I'm going to tell you, it means something to the crew. It means a lot to the crew. These guys, when they work all night, they are so determined. They want their car to cross the line, and it's for the crew. It's not for the drivers.
There you see the car. No one in it right now, though. Chris Neville has more on their situation.
Well, I went down and talked to the team manager, Mike Johnson, and they were going to take the rear bonnet off the car and take a look, but there's only a couple minutes left, so they're just going to shake their heads and say they did the best job they could and just kind of let it go at that. They think it's an electrical problem, and electrical problems just take too long to sort out.
Good point. Now you see the cars forming up. You saw the Ferraris all getting together. Here are the two Team Seattle cars, Essex Racing Machinery. Under Mike Gouet and Tony Dow, they have done a great job in class. They will finish 1-2 in class, 7 and 8 in the overall. There's the 24 GTS class leader. All the leaders will find one another and cross the finish line in echelon style for the photographers. And remember, a couple of years ago, Kyle Petty found himself racing Darren Law in the final lap, and darned if Kyle wasn't going to take advantage of the opportunity to use half the field lined up for the picture as a pick. Trapped Darren Law up high and went by for 4th in GT. We expect the white flag this time by for the number 66 to start the final lap of this 3.56-mile combined NASCAR oval and infield road course that has seen so many dramatic 24-hour races over the years, won by the likes of Porsche and Ford and Ferrari and so many great names. Gurney, and Andretti, and Haywood, and Holbert, and Bell. And now adding their names to the list will be the group of drivers in this car. Kevin Buckler from Sonoma, California, Michael Schramm from Ghent, New York, Timo Bernard and Jörg Bergmeister from Germany. An international driving lineup in a classic Porsche 911, a state-of-the-art 2003 911 GT3 RS that is writing yet another chapter in the glorious history of Porsche here at Daytona.
And they have had an absolutely faultless run in every way, shape and form. Quite extraordinary to have just got through the entire night so unscathed.
White flag, and now everyone will want to find the 66.
When you take a look back, you take a step back and look and think about Kevin Buckler. Isn't it a great story? He's the first to admit, hey, I was just a kid from California who was in love with Porsches, and my wife and I started this business in our back bedroom, and then it went to our garage, and now we have a big race shop, and we prepare cars, and we do things, and now he's going to take this outright victory.
To have an endurance, to go through a 24-hour race as perfectly as he has and that team has, David, I mean, that is so hard to accomplish.
Not a scratch.
I mean, you need more than a good car. You need good everything and luck, unbelievable luck.
We saw their other two cars get taken out in accidents, which really neither of them could do anything. Andrew Davis was suddenly confronted with a stationary car in the dark, and McCallion got
Jim McCallion
up the rear end at about 155 mile an hour, spun it off the road, and never seen a car go so fast backwards. It's quicker than my wife goes down the drive backwards.
I wonder if you looked at the stats of the 24-hour of which car spent the least amount of time in the pits for victory.
And that 66 has got to be right there on top of the list.
Absolutely. I mean,
all their pit stops have gone.
They had every pit stop was absolutely routine. They didn't have to turn a wrench. They didn't have to do anything. As far as I know.
Clean the windshield, change the driver, away you go.
They didn't even have a driver hang up, I don't think. It was perfect.
Look at the car.
The 8 car out again. Do not run into the back of that 66 car, as you are also.
Or make sure you drive out the back gate if you do.
Well, I tell you what, if any car and team has earned tremendous respect, it's got to be Kevin Butler and the entire Racers group.
Buckler and the gang, wife and family behind, looking out over the pit wall. What a moment for Kevin Buckler and his entire family, because, of course, it's not always the guy up front. It is his family, and every driver in the pit lane who has a family can tell you how important the family has been to him. But this race has been all about the Racers Group Porsche. The 66 car takes the checkered flag first from the GT category to win the overall here at Daytona. And look at Kevin Buckler.
You the man.
Third straight 24-hour victory for Buckler and the Racers Group.
For the Ferraris, they came across the start-finish line, and they were also...
What a day, and nobody took advantage like you thought they would, Bob, of getting the photograph, except the number 8 car, the PQ, the BMW PQ.
Yeah, it's an all-podium GT finish.
An incredible year for Kevin Buckler. Not only the 24-hour victories and other race victories as well, but the Worldwide Porsche Cup, honoring Porsche's most successful privateer driver worldwide. And there is the number 88 Multimatic Ford Daytona prototype that will go into the record books as winner of the first race for the new class. What better place to do it than Daytona? Here is the class-leading sports racing prototype 2. These are the two Team Seattle Essex Racing cars that will cross the finish line side by side. In the record books, the number 5 car will lead the number 15 to a 1-2 sweep in class, 4 laps apart on the racetrack. So congratulations to Ross Bentley, another Daytona victory in class for Ross. Don Ketch, the founder of Team Seattle, and the father-son team of Joe and Justin Bruskowski.
They've also generated about $125,000 today for their children's hospital up there in Seattle.
Here comes the Multimatic car with an all-star driver lineup, David Embringham and Scott Maxwell from Canada, and David Brabham from Australia, who now makes his home in southern Florida. All making their way across the finish line as the corner workers from the Central Florida region of the Sports Car Club of America come out for the traditional corner worker salute to the drivers and teams who have finished the Rolex 24. And there is the winner in GTS after that dramatic charge by Andy Wallace. We'll be back. 24 hours ago, the 41st Rolex 24 at Daytona began with a field of 44 cars. After 695 laps or 2,474.2 miles of hard racing at an official average speed of 103.012 miles per hour, the Porsche 911 GT3 RS of Kevin Buckler, Michael Schramm, Timo Bernard, and Jörg Bergmeister is in victory lane. Let's go to Calvin Fish.
Well, the Racers Group do it again. Kevin Buckler getting congratulations from his crew. What a year for you, Kevin. Winning the Porsche Cup, Daytona last year, Class Le Mans, and now the overall win. How about that?
I can't believe it. We knew we had a little tiny chance, but we did what the guys did, what they always do best. We came here, we put our heads down, we went to work. I didn't really want to talk about it too much. There were some really good teams here. We had a battle last night with one of the Daytona prototypes, like 30 seconds apart for hours, and it was just fingers. You know, we're biting our nails the whole time. A lot of good GT teams too, but as the race stretched on a little bit, we just stayed consistent and didn't make any mistakes. A little Porsche was perfect.
Well, a great run there, Kevin. Let's bring in Michael Schramm, who drove the car into victory lane. Michael, things have come alive for you, mate. Late in your career, but things as you turn to the Racers Group to try and get some results has really come around the last couple of years for you.
I'm so fortunate. The opportunities that Kevin's provided with this team, it's just, I'm speechless. It's just been an incredible year. Year plus, actually.
Talk about the feeling, actually, driving a car. You had the class win last year, but driving in here, Victory Circle at Daytona, so many famous names over the year in sports car racing history, and now you add your name to that list.
It is unbelievable. We're going to be in the museum. I cannot believe it, Calvin. It is so fascinating. I'm choked.
Awesome job. Let's bring in the two youngsters. Jörg, Timo, great performance. You missed out on the Le Mans win last year in class, but you won Daytona with this team, and you come here and do it again.
Yeah, it's really amazing. I actually didn't believe that we won it overall. It's really cool.
Timo, how was the race? I mean, everyone said that this was wide open this year. A GT, a GTS car could win. Anything could win here. But were you surprised that the GT cars were such a factor so early, like the 6, 7, 8 hour mark, you guys were already up front?
Yeah, it was too early. I thought if we could win maybe in the last 2 or 3 hours, but not after 6 hours. It was a big surprise. A lot of people expected us to win, but I didn't thought about it. I thought maybe if we win the class it would be good, but to win overall it's a little dream coming true.
Talk about the race itself, parity with the classes, not much speed differential. Did that make your job easier, being in essentially one of the slower cars typically out there?
Yes. Last year we had to look a lot in the mirrors because the fast LMP's cars were overtaking us in the banking, and now it was pretty easy, you know. I think it was easier than last year to drive, and the car was reliable. But I have to say it was nearly a sprint race. It was not a long distance race. It was a sprint race, so it was very excited.
Well, congratulations to the whole team. Great performance by the young boys here from Porsche, basically two factory drivers, Kevin Buckler and Michael Schramm. Winners here, the 41st running of the Rolex at Daytona. Let's go back up top to Bob.
Well, thanks very much, Calvin. And watching those interviews, I can't help but think, here are two American guys who fought their way forward through the amateur ranks into the pros. Now they've reached the pinnacle with Porsche. And here are these two young German kids who are doing exactly what Porsche hired them to do, go out and win endurance races. Alvin Springer, the retiring president of Porsche Motorsports North America, says getting a young American into that Porsche factory driver mix is a high priority. Now let's get back down there to Guy Hobbs.
We are with our Daytona prototype winners, the first time ever. We'll start with you, Scott. Sorry, David, you got out the car, just did that last stint. Obviously not quite what you wanted, but still a result.
Yeah, we're pretty proud of our accomplishment. It's a real testament to Ford Power Plant and Multimatic, who built the car. First day on the track was January, so reliability was phenomenal. Thanks to Robert Yates engines, we're just really excited to finish the race, and first and foremost, first in the prototype class.
Yeah, you have in fact made history, and you've done it with your buddy Scott Maxwell too, because you two guys have got a great history here at Daytona. You've got to keep this up.
Yeah, I think it's our good luck track, but we were really close to an overall victory today, so it's a bit bittersweet, but again, a fantastic effort by Multimatic with a brand new car and Robert Yates and Ford.
Going to look strong for the rest of the season. David Bradman, you've got to be absolutely chuffed too.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's a good way to start the season off with a win, and this is not normally my team, this is their team, so it's been great to be part of a great team. The Multimatic guys did a fantastic job with the car that's brand new, and this is our first real test with it, so to get a result is fantastic. Robert Yates, again, did a fantastic job with that engine, because that's the first time that engine's run for 24 hours as well, so great. And Goodyear tyres were very good as well.
And of course you made it through all those problems.
Yeah, we got there in the end. I mean, we kind of had the problem early on, and then we had to really push like hell to get up. And then we got onto the lead lap with only 20-30 seconds behind, and then it happened again. So then we dropped back 5 laps, and then that kind of put us out of contention. So really we're just trying to get it back to the end.
All right, back to the booth.
All right, thanks very much, Guy. Plenty more winners to talk to, and we'll do that when we return live to Daytona International Speedway. 41st running of the Rolex 24 at Daytona is now in the books. Stay with us. Welcome back live to Daytona International Speedway down in Victory Lane. The party is just beginning, but we have 4 sets of class winners. We've spoken to a couple, got a couple more to go. Let's get down to the pit lane where Guy Hobbs is standing by.
Standing by with Ross Bentley, the SRP2 class winner. Ross, you got to be real happy with that. Not the first time you've won here.
Actually, this is, you can't believe how good this feels. Had a couple of seconds here, first time winning here. This feels great. And look at this. That is cool.
That's a great total. 125,000. Don Kitchen, Joe, and Justin Prokowski shared the driving. Got to be thrilled with that.
Oh, absolutely. To be able to do this for children's and help out and get a win in the meantime here is part of that. What an absolute fantastic opportunity.
And let's get a word with Don here, because Don, you said you weren't going to do this again after the first time. Now you've done it 7, making lots of children happy. Are you going to come back and do it an 8th time?
Oh, we'll be here. It doesn't get much better than this. It's all about these little ones right here for us. So, racing and making money for the kids. It doesn't get any sweeter than this, guy.
All right, and of course you are the points leaders going into the next round, if you should so choose. So, congratulations to Team Seattle with a 1-2 finish in SRP2 class.
All right, thanks very much, guys. Now let's get to Thanks very much, guys. You see the photography continuing with our overall race winners by 9 laps, I might add. Let's catch up with Chris Neville.
I'm over here with the GTS overall winners. These guys running the Mosler this weekend. Jerome, you got to run the car near the end of the stint when you started having some heating problems in the car. Were you guys getting pretty worried at that point in time?
Yeah, it's a great feeling to share the car with Michel, Andy, and Joao. We have such fantastic race. We start. I believe we couldn't be on the podium, but we have a gearbox problem and after cooling problem. So, but by the end, the GTS category was. We were so far, and they've got a problem, and we finished first. So it's just fantastic for the team and ourselves.
Andy, we spoke yesterday, and you said that there were a couple problems. That's why the car was late to pit lane. You guys looked really strong in the beginning of the race. Besides that gearbox problem, you had been pretty excited about the type of ride you picked to run this weekend.
Well, the car was running fast, and none of the drivers made any mistakes. The crew were doing a great job in the pits, but as you say, we lost 62 minutes with the gearbox. That's a big chunk to lose. We never ever gave up. We charged after the others, and luckily for us, everybody seemed to have problems. So here we are.
Jerome, were you guys planning to run more ALMS or Grand Am this year?
Well, we don't know. We're allowed to run Grand Am, but the team is not sure about the plans for the future. So hopefully this will help.
Well, hopefully we see this Mosler 24 team back in some more races later this year.
Thanks very much, Chris. If I'm not mistaken, that's certainly the first 24-hour victory for that Mosler chassis, which I believe made its first appearance here at the Rolex just 2 years ago. So that's quite an achievement by that mark as well. It was certainly an incident-filled 24 hours, but we expect that sort of thing here at Daytona. And we have now kicked off the 2003 racing season in North America in style with another victory and an historic one for Porsche on 9/11, the overall victor here at the Rolex. We'll take another break and return to wrap things up from the world's center of racing. Stand by for more post-race festivities from the Rolex 24. Speed Channel's coverage of the Rolex 24 at Daytona has been brought to you by Porsche, what only Porsche brings to driving. By Rolex, the watch of champions the world over. And by Axiom, the global leader in customer information management solutions. Let Axiom help you grow great relationships with your customers. That's an appropriate time for us to point out that in addition to the first prize, our winning number 66 Porsche 911 also picks up the first Axiom Grand Touring Challenge bonus of $10,000. So further congratulations to Kevin Buckler and his team. Now let's get down. Time for final thoughts, and we'll begin in the pit lane with Calvin Fish and Brian Till.
Well, Bob, there's no place like Victory Lane here at Daytona. Kevin Buckler and this team visited Victory Lane last year for the class win. This year they came for the overall, and it really changed the strategy throughout this event. The GT cars were running flat out. They just didn't consolidate the lead. They wanted the win. And we remember when they were battling with the 88 Daytona prototype car, they didn't want to give up the lead. It paid off with an overall win here. You can see the victors on the podium right now. Brian, your thoughts today?
The work ethic of these guys is just unbelievable. All the woulda, shoulda, couldas that were out there. The 83 car with Murray and the guys, you know, Lazzaro and the guys in the 35 Ferrari. And you think about both Brumos cars that could have, would have, and maybe should have. Brabs in the 88 car. I mean, these guys worked. They fell back, they came back, they fell back and came back. Real tortoise in the hare, but they were all in it up until really just a few hours to go. It's incredible. Guy, I know that you and Chris have your own thoughts on how all this went.
We certainly do. I know one thing for sure. I've got to go and find a Weetabix from somewhere to give to Johnny Molam, who made it to Victory Lane after all that. The other thing is, again, the prototypes, although we didn't see as many out here as we would like, it's going to be a strong, good season with them and some very close racing amongst them. And the other thing is I'm really looking forward to spending the whole season working with my mate here, Neville.
You know, the one thing that I was truly amazed of is the tenacity of some of these Daytona prototype teams. A few of the teams, you look at the G&W Picchio team, they really had some hard times right from the beginning, and they could have given up, put the car back in the box, and gone home. But they stuck it out. They decided to try and do some development with the car, and they end up on the podium. I think we're going to see some fantastic racing later in the year. Back to you guys in the booth.
All right, thanks very much, guys. Up here in the booth, our whole team is lined up. Jack Baldwin, Lee Diffie, David Hobbs, and me, Bob Varsha. Guys, time for final thoughts from up high. Jack, you're the newcomer to the group. What do you think?
Well, you know, with the rule changes, the beginning of a new era, the prediction was the most competitive race in years. I think we saw that. Also, the prediction was the year of the GT car, and I think we saw that. I think that with the parity and the changes, the future looks bright for Grand American Road Racing and the Rolex Series. I'm certainly looking for next season. I've also thoroughly enjoyed working with you, David, and of course Lee, my new teammate for the year.
That's right.
I'm not going to be behind the wheel. I'll be up in the booth.
Lee, your thoughts as you look ahead to a season of Grand American Racing here on Speed Channel.
Thoroughly enjoyable. We can check or tick that box that a Daytona prototype can go 24 hours. The Ferrari took the fight pretty much up to Porsche, so there's some positives to take away there. It's a long, grueling time, but a thoroughly enjoyable 24-hour period.
And a great way to start the season.
I think the Daytona prototypes are obviously going to be strong. We saw the Donahue car, the Haywood car leading this race pretty easily. They had very strange things go wrong with the car, and we got some really good cars in the wings. The Doran Chevrolet is going to be quick, and of course we've got a car from Max Crawford coming along, which no doubt will be very quick. So the Daytona prototypes are going to be very strong as the year unfolds. They get some more time on the track.
Well, nothing is so constant as change, and in the world of motorsports, nothing changes as much as sports car racing. And it's an exciting start to what should be a great season with the Grand American Road Racing Series here on Speed Channel. I'm Bob Barsha for David Hobbs, Calvin Fish, Brian Till, Lee Diffie, Jack Baldwin, Guy Hobbs, Chris Neville, and of course our man behind the scenes, Greg Kramer. Thanks for being with us for this 16 hours of live coverage of America's greatest 24-hour sports car event, the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Congratulations once again to Kevin Buckler, who has seen a dream come true in ways perhaps even he could never have imagined. Overall victory at the Rolex 24. Great way to start his championship season as the holder of the Worldwide Porsche Cup. Congratulations to him. So long, everyone. Here's a look back.